Welcome to the Wall Street Lab podcast, where we interview top financial professionals and deconstruct their practices to give you an insider look into the world of finance.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wall Street Lab podcast. Our guest today is Ömer Güven. Ömer is the CEO and co-founder of fintalent.io, a marketplace for freelance M&A professionals. He has been in VC, investment banking, and asset management industry for more than 10 years. Before founding fintalent, Ömer was himself a freelance M&A professional and consultant, and before that, Ömer served as the investment director and head of M&A for a publicly listed Swedish-Vietnamese Venture Builder, fram. Before that, he worked as a Senior M&A Associate at a Mid Market M&A Boutique, and his career started in institutional equity research and equity sales at Warburg CO, which is one of Germany's major independent private banks. Ömer is a CFA Charterholder and a board member of the CFA Society Liechtenstein. He holds a bachelor's degree in international management and a master's degree in finance and accounting. Ömer, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andreas, for having me.
It's good to speak to you again. In our previous conversation, we noticed we had a lot in common. We kind of never could stay away from working and learning at the same time, and we share quite a bit of passion about traveling, so we might get into that a bit later. But in a nutshell, how did you get started with your M&A career and now being a founder?
I started at Warburg, first in equity research, where I mostly analyzed public companies, and then switched to equity sales. And somehow, with all the regulation around capital markets, MiFID, the unbundling of commissions, I realized that there's actually no future in human interaction when it comes to picking stocks. So I was looking for a career change within banking because I enjoyed working with clients. I enjoyed still working in finance. And so this was the reason why I moved into M&A.
Okay, and then you worked in M&A for how long before you, and I'm prefacing a bit here, before you decided to do something else?
Right. So, so I worked 2 years in M&A as a senior associate. I basically could make use of the entire knowledge that I gained in equity research when it comes to valuation and also dealing with major public companies, right? So I was already involved in an IPO while I was working in equity research and with the investment banking division at Warburg. So after 2 years working in M&A, I also realized that somehow, I turned 27. I realized actually I haven't seen much working 7 years straight in a high-paced environment with very knowledgeable people. But then for myself, just wanted to discover the world while I saved quite some money and just want to enjoy life.
And then you decided to do what? After at 27 being a senior associate at a mid-level M&A boutique, which I guess pays pretty well, is a fairly comfortable job, probably also a high-pressure job. But then what did you decide to do?
Well, thank you, Andreas, for asking about this question. So actually, I was on vacation for 2 weeks, just traveling by myself. And I came back to Germany. I was sitting in my office. It was a Friday. It was right after lunch. And I got back to my desk and somehow realized that, I felt so comfortable in Thailand. And, I was diving for a week, and then you're sitting there again, with your tie, with your suit in your office, and okay, somehow that doesn't feel right. So the next thing that I did is I went to my managing partner and said, I'm going to finish the project, but I'm going to quit. So I'm going to become a diving instructor, and so this was a super spontaneous decision, and this is what happened. So I quit. I went on for 2 months to close the project that I had running, and then this is in 2017. Booked a flight one way to Thailand, signed up for diving courses to become a diving instructor. And that was it, right? And then the next thing that I remember well is how I sit in the plane.
And how did your managing director react to you telling him on Friday, I'm going to quit?
Well, he was not really amused, not at all. I think his face, became swollen, or became red. But he was very polite, and so he said okay, and paused there. And so actually, so you can imagine how that probably is, right?
Especially, I guess in this kind of alpha-driven world, if you would have said, honestly, I'm joining Goldman as a director in M&A, I'm earning double. He was like, okay, yeah, I can't keep up with that, but being a diving instructor must have hit hard.
Yeah, the funny thing is, diving instructor is probably one part of it. In our industry, people are doing crazy things. If I look back, now the colleagues that I work, so the one guy became a pilot, the other guy is now kind of, working with horses and selling horses. So the other one became a professional golf player. So it's really crazy. I think that somehow our industry attracts just crazy people.
I can see that. Okay, so fast forward, you had your fun, you're in Thailand, and you kind of came back, right? You then go to back the head of M&A. Did you get bored of diving, or what happened?
So actually, the funny thing is, I never dived. So I never dived when I arrived in Thailand. So I booked the course. I was going to the south, right? I arrived in Bangkok, and so my first goal was to go to the islands, Koh Tao and so on. So what happened is that, so I actually, I was 3 days in Bangkok. I was about to book a flight to the south and realized, hey, okay, if I go down there, I will probably never see the north, right? So Chiang Mai, Pai, and so on, Chiang Rai. So I said, okay, let's just visit the north for 2 weeks, and then I can still go south, right? Otherwise, I will just be stuck on an island. So I said, okay. Then the next thing is okay, I found myself on a plane rather to the north, and what happened is I stayed 4 months in the north. This is where I discovered kind of, freelancing. I passed by a university. I saw that they are actually teaching courses about valuation, and saw these. So basically, these kind of case studies, right? And I was walking past the business school and, just reading the information on the blackboard, so the open vacancies, right, from KPMG and from Deloitte, trying to attract young students from Thailand. And I found that quite interesting. And then all of a sudden, the dean of the business school approached me, and we got into a deep conversation about about my career path, and also about valuation, about the current economic environment. So then he asked if I want to teach a course about valuation. So I still had my Bloomberg access. And it was super interesting, in Thailand, it's not and especially not the Chiang Mai Business School, the target uni that you would expect, or,
it's no Harvard.
Right. Or any other European kind of business school, not comparable at all. And there's still the language barrier and so on. But I want to teach them how it works. It's a main shortcoming in most German universities anyways, right? So that you don't do the case studies, how you actually evaluate real cases like Adidas or Twitter. So this is how it got started. So I prepared 2 case studies. Actually, it was Adidas and Twitter. Twitter is now super interesting, right? So it came up in the news recently. But I prepared a fact book, and and gave these 2 days 2-day workshop, and then also on valuation, and then also on fintech. This was super inspiring to me, because that moment I realized that I really still like finance, and I like to teach and talk about that subject. And so this was super inspiring. So this was
Okay, and then how did you get back to actually working, or did that already when you said, okay, let me just freelance? But I think before you freelanced, really, you got you took a job again, right?
No, actually, I was freelancing. I took a job after the freelancing. So I'm in Chiang Mai, right? So I'm teaching at the business school, basically 2 days. But I was preparing heavily this course. It was just passion pure, and I want to teach them well. And so this is how I somehow said, okay, so now I'm sitting in this cafe. I'm doing something where I don't earn any money, just out of passion. And then, the moment when you're sitting there preparing the course, doing the valuation, preparing a DCF model, and it's also getting into the valuation ratios and multiples and so on. And then I said, actually, there must be a way to work from here for somehow European companies, right? So it must be still of some kind of value. And in 2017, remote work was not, especially not in finance, it's just impossible. Work hard, play hard mentality, alpha mentality. Either you are shaped for this industry or you're out, right? So, and so what I did is, I was looking for freelance platforms. I found Upwork, which is a major freelancing platform. And I found myself to be one of the only five finance freelancers or consultants in that very field. And freelancing was still new. And so what I did is, I also called up companies, and there was this one private equity firm in Switzerland, and also another venture in also in Switzerland. And I started getting my first 2 clients. And so this was I did the projects, and for Southeast Asian levels, I earned quite well. And so this is how it all started, basically.
Okay, now fast forward a bit. You founded fintalent. Could you quickly, in a couple of sentences, tell us why did you found fintalent and what is it actually?
Yes, I founded fintalent because I saw that the other platforms, general freelancing platforms, offered many opportunities, good opportunities for designers, for IT engineers, but not for finance professionals. And so I want to create a platform that is suited and made for former investment bankers who are in the same situation that I was, loving finance, still market the skills that they have accumulated over their careers, but still having the flexibility to work from anywhere in the world and apply their skill set. So fintalent is a platform for former bankers, investment professionals, private equity professionals, and M&A professionals who are taking jobs offered by large enterprises, private equity firms, or also later stage ventures. And it's a very specialized, light tier 1 network for former bankers.
If you would have told me, I don't know, 5 years ago, that I could work, there's something where M&A professionals can work remotely. So as our listeners know, as you might know, I interview a lot of M&A professionals, a lot of investment bankers, a lot of private equity managers, right? I don't think I've ever heard something like, oh yeah, I just went I heard a lot of stories I went on vacation to the Caribbean and I ended up working 24/7 in the hotel and I didn't even see the beach. That's what I hear a lot.
Yes.
What I don't hear is I did it on purpose to fly to the Caribbean while working remotely. I've never, ever heard that. Did anything in the recent years change to make this possible? I mean, you started fintalent before COVID, right? So is there a shift, and why would a company do that? It's been, so ingrained. The investment bankers are the ones in the office at coming in at 6, leaving at midnight, coming in at 6 again, right?
Yeah.
How is this even possible today?
So thank you so much, Andreas, for this great question. This is the biggest disbelief, and this is in this entire industry, such a false belief that you actually have to be there 24/7. And especially this is true for the sell side, right? The buy side doesn't care at all. So they are caring that once a deal comes on their plate, that you execute well, do thorough work, but they don't care about that kind of presentation skills or thoroughness in this case, thoroughness towards the numbers and the details, but not how you present it, right? So the buy side always has a different view on how to execute deals and what is important and what is not than the sell side. And this is the reason why, especially on the sell side, you can not really apply this kind of working model, not because the job requires it. It's just like the hierarchy that you live in and work in with your MD, with your vice president to justify their paycheck and to justify their power, and also kind of take justice on their, kind of past experience that they have gone through, right? So in their analyst times, you're confronted with someone, like an MD, 20, 30 years in the industry. I mean, there was no cloud, no collaboration software. They don't even know how to deal with Excel anymore, right? So it's just like two different worlds. I mean, if I talk to my grandfather, shows how the iPhone works, what's all possible, right? So you still have this kind of people in this industry. And I mean, we talked to bulge bracket banks. They were interested in fintalent, how the model works, because obviously they have huge problems in acquiring talent, but still they don't want to change anything. And remote work is not what needs to be changed, right? Remote work might be one aspect, and it all comes down to, okay, I'm somewhere like whatever in Bali or Hawaii, and still end up have to be like responsive all the time. So again, like the industry or the way how sell side works is, if you don't work on a project, they still utilize your time, your paycheck. So you have to show face time. And
sorry to interrupt you, but could you tell us a bit more what are the typical tasks that a sell side investment banker would do? I think you were going to anyway, but if you could specify, like, what are the typical tasks that makes sell side, and then later on, what makes buy side, and then I guess you're going to say that anyway, but how you could or why you can do buy side activities more as a freelancer on a gig basis, on a project basis.
Yes. So on the sell side, you're mostly dealing with marketing material and documentation. This is clearly what you're doing because you mostly take on sell side mandates. For example, creating the information memorandum, creating the financial model. So you clearly need to justify that. And the way, like, you're dealing with multiple stakeholders. So you are not directly dealing with the client and mostly preparing financial material. And if you don't do it, if you don't have projects, you pitch for other projects, right? So you are involved in the origination and the sales process. And I mean, I would do the same. I mean, those are fixed costs and they are earning a lot. So you have to kind of utilize that cost. And this is how the equation works, right? So in order to justify the high pay, it can only be justified with as many hours as possible.
Okay, interesting.
And then on the buy side, I mean, so how does it work on the buy side? I mean, you have a actual company, you are working in industry, they have their operations, and M&A is only a tool. M&A is a tool, that a powerful tool that can be leveraged for traditional companies to grow inorganically. But so you see, like, if you build an M&A pipeline, if you are dealing with corporate development, or if you just acquire and with integration, right? So this is really per project basis, but you do not need to pitch or prepare marketing material. So you work on a specific project, which is defined, which has a starting date, which has an end date, and then it goes over to integration, and then maybe your job ends, right? So it starts at whatever LOI or you're approaching the target, and then it's well better defined and suited for freelancing work. And once again, there's an inherent conflict of interest so for example, for sell side, do not like to take on buy side projects because there are so many reasons why a deal does not go through, and they don't get paid or they don't get paid the success fee, right? If the deal does not go through. So there's also an immense gap on the buy side.
Okay. So, but if you're on the buy side, like they just want to evaluate it, right? And there's no success fee. There's just only the project fee.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So Exactly. So if you engage a boutique, there's sometimes still a success fee. So usually a traditional M&A boutique would require a success fee still. But here again, as you've seen in with like Twitter or large transactions, some of them purely work on success fee basis. And if the deal does not go through and you're on the buy side, then you don't get any fees.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. So we have on the show a lot of investment professionals, guys and girls. This is really for you, my listeners. This is why I wanted to bring Ömer on to give us a bit of a masterclass. Usually we have a short career section at the end of the podcast. I would really like to do this a longer career section, not as what does it take to become a founder, what does it take to be an M&A professional or something like that. It's more, what does it take for me to become a freelance M&A professional? I don't know if that's something you are all interested in, but I think this would be really interesting. So this is what I kind of want to talk about for maybe the rest of this episode. We know it's more for buy side projects. It's often gig based. Is it totally easy that it is remote, or do you come in to a project at Twitter? You fly into the US, you are 4 months working on a project, and then you're flying out, or how does that usually work? Or is it like, oh no, we have maybe. I don't know. In Twitter is maybe the reason Twitter is a bad example. It was like a private individual wants to buy a company, but let's just say, in theory, Elon Musk has his own small M&A team for like smaller transactions. But for Twitter, he's like, oh damn, I need to get to like a bunch more people. How does Constellations usually? Is it they have a team in place, and they just need extensions, or do they not have a team in place? And it's the first time they ever do an M&A acquisition. How are the projects usually going? And then is it often that the people that come on your platform are remote, or are they in person?
So, okay, let me start maybe with the most recent question. So, how's usually the setup, right? So, again, M&A is a tool. So, even in larger companies, you will find a very small M&A or corporate dev team, because you cannot guarantee any M&A pipeline, and it takes major resources to acquire companies, right? So, not only cash resources, but also management attention. You need resources to integrate. There's this maybe cultural clash that also plays a very important role, if not the role, actually, when it comes to integration and as a determinant for the success of an M&A transaction. So here we clearly see that it's so some have more experience, some have less experience, but overall M&A in general is always a high risk thing to do for a company. So to build up their own team is still advisable, right? And to have it in-house, at least like as an M&A. So to have a deal lead, basically. Again, like you can never predict how many deals you will do, and that is the reason why you still go to the consultancies, because they just have way more experience with a specific sector, because you cannot know if you are acquiring that sector or in another sector. And so that's the reason why. So to access on-demand additional resources just makes sense, and not to build up these crazy fixed costs for that very division. How does it work, right? So let's talk about kind of building a pipeline, like sourcing, origination of M&A targets, and you have the execution. So everything from let's say LOI to signing and closing, and then you have integration. So we see integration moving more and more into corporate dev competency as such. But when it comes to the working style, most of it will be done remotely. It's also done on the sell side or buy side, doesn't matter, right? So all the data is readily available on the cloud or whatever in Salesforce in a data room, basically. And so you need to talk to the different stakeholders of either the target company or also if you sell right to your client. But the funny thing, it has been already done remotely, right? So the actual tools are there. So you don't have to be there. You don't have to be on site. But still on the buy side, it would be still advisable to still visit the target, build trust. And also when you're dealing with other, like, let's say, business units, right? So when it's financial planning or FP&A, or if you're dealing with the product side of things or talking to sales, would also make sense to just get their view on a certain deal. But yeah, it's really up to your own organizational culture and structure. But you don't have to be there. So 5 days a week on site, clearly not. So maybe once every 2 weeks or once every month, right? So it really depends on the culture.
And then for the talent side, for the consultant side. So I kind of understand with your platform, you're kind of competing against boutiques, against consultancies that have for healthcare, we have a specialized team. There's 3 people that do healthcare, and you're saying, well, we also have 3 people that do healthcare. It's just kind of never work together, but they might be cheaper because you don't have all the overheads that they're paying, because 3 individual professionals, and you could even more specifically target your team. If I want to be an M&A freelancer, which I don't even know if people, really ever thought about this, that this is possible. What is the minimum requirement that you should bring? Is it like you? I've been 2 years an associate in M&A, and now I'm going to freelance this. Is it advisable, or should you say, no, actually, you should have at least, 5 deals so people would trust you? Because I think the trust barrier is much higher. If I'm hiring a boutique, this boutique has a name, and if the associate or if the analyst messes up something, well, the MD is going to correct it and is going to stand in for it, right? But if I hire an analyst remotely, who's going to take responsibility for the work? So what is some minimum requirement you would people say they should have before they think about freelancing?
Yeah. So first of all, very good question again, Andrea. So first of all, so there's a reason why there are big label consultancies like KPMG, PwC, and so on. And you have seen, in the Wirecard case, right, that sometimes the labeling is not worth anything. And so this is basically so this is very true, but this is how it works, right? All these rating agencies with that labeling of big companies, it's like cover your ass. And we see more and more that LPs and private, especially in private equity firms, if they do their commercial due diligence, if they have to justify any fairness opinion or any valuation, they will go to the brand names, and they will basically cover their ass in front of their LPs that obviously EY can be trusted, right? Anyway, so that being said, why do you go for an M&A freelancer? So it really depends. It's just not there are quality differences. I really don't like the word the word freelance, because it has been misused, and somehow in our industry it doesn't have the image, especially not in Europe, actually, rather in the US, that it should that it actually deserves. Because someone who's freelancing is basically relying on her or his own skill sets, and so he or she must be really good, right? And so if you have someone who worked at Goldman or in private equity or in corporate development, having so many years of industry experience on their belt, it just gives you access to it, right? To that particular industry. And if you are going to a boutique, look at their experience. They have sell-side experience, but do not really have. They might be they might have a certain industry experience on the sell side, but do they really have day-to-day experience, and do they really understand the impact of the deal that it has to the company and on their day-to-day operations. And so if you look at PE professionals, let's say, so I mean, it's impossible to actually get someone who has done multiple deals on the buy side and to access that kind of talent. And this is a treasure that remote work and access across borders really delivers, that you are able to access a certain expertise. And yet, M&A freelancing and freelancing in general is a niche market. There's still a way how you can form yourself as a team, as a virtual boutique, and offer a more collective approach together with other freelancers. But you don't have to be, let's say in Minnesota or in a small city, and you offer you offer services. Yeah, you might be good at networking and selling, your little boutique, but then you can actually access someone which at the same price, which comes from brand names, just have seen so many more deals and are well better suited and educated. And this is basically the value that you can extract from freelancing and from remote work.
So if I want to be a remote working gig-based M&A professional, what do I need to bring to the table to be successful in that? Can I do that? Can I start as an analyst and be like, hey, I'm an M&A analyst and I want to do this? Or should I have at least experience of X on my belt? And then preferably what kind of experience? So as a context, a lot of our listeners are young professionals, are maybe students still, and they kind of know, wow, this sounds like a cool thing to do. How should I think about my career to get there?
Yeah. So one rule of thumb is you take your years of experience minus 3. So let's say you have 2 years of analyst experience. Minus 3 is like you have zero. You bring zero value to the table. This is really true because when you work in an organization like on the sell side and you're dealing with someone 2 years of experience and they're good in modeling, they need lots of supervision and advice and might be super specialized, but yet bad communicators. And what you need is communication skills, like the number one skill that you need. If you are not able to communicate, to set expectations, like you don't need to go into freelancing. Freelancing is not made for professionals that cannot take on client-facing roles, and they are not able to communicate the value that they bring to the table. And this is clearly the number one rule. And then, so this is just like you need to market yourself. You need to be able to market your skill set. And if you are not able to do that, then freelancing is not for you. If you are good in marketing yourself, but not good in the skill set, freelancing is also not good for you, because then you're better off in a big corporate and pretending to do things and achieving nothing, no results. Then freelancing is also not for you. And so these are the two magic, like these components. You clearly need communication and something to offer, a real expertise or skill set that delivers value.
What skills, for example, would be useful? You mentioned Excel a lot. Should I, look at that? I develop something in financial modeling. Should I focus on that? Should I try to be an analyst or an associate at a private equity fund? What kind of jobs, maybe, if there are any, should I be looking for?
Yes. So the great thing about freelancing is that you can stay in your category. So analyst per se or specialist, let's say. I mean, analyst is hierarchical, let's say measured in a corporate level, right? Whereas a specialist, let's say, if you are really good in financial modeling, you can still stay in financial modeling and you get more and more experience in that, and you can claim that you are a specialist in financial modeling and do it for 20 years. What is important is to kind of set this in relation to your rates, right? So the more groundwork, the more hours a task takes. So let's say low impact, basically, but high frequency. So the lower your rate is, right? But in total, you will still earn good money because you are working hours on a financial model. So it's really up to you, like where you see your expertise. But let's say your expertise is financial modeling, then you should actually stick to it. The more senior you get and you realize you are better in a client-facing role, with that, you cannot be a generalist anymore. With a financial modeler, you can do that. So you can model things like in a different industries. You can go from from SaaS to whatever infrastructure. But the more senior you become, and the more project management work you do, you have to be a better communicator, set expectations right. Your rate will increase significantly. The hours that you need to work will be less. So you can say like maybe a quarter of that of an analyst. But you also need to be an expert in a very particular industry. You cannot say, hey, I'm a generalist. I do this and this. I do infrastructure as a SaaS. I do real estate. You will lose credibility. And this is so important to understand. Like, it has no value if you have like 20 years on your belt and there's no clear path of your expertise. Then you will really waste your potential.
So it's a bit slightly the same as just building a normal career in M&A, because if you are all over the place with what you're doing, if you switch companies every 5 years to do another specialization, another thing, then even as a freelancer, people just don't know, how to filter for you, right?
Yes.
What filter do I set if somebody has done SaaS infrastructure and so on and so on? Are there any other things that I should watch out for? Is there, you are a CFA charter holder, is that helpful? Are there any M&A things that you should build up those qualifications or certifications? Anything that comes up particularly often?
Yeah. Actually, three things, right? So first of all, brand names. So brand names are super important to market yourself. So what I would never advise is to start your career at a small company. It just really will hit you hard later on. Even if if you're aiming for a bulge bracket and you want to go into M&A, it's still, you are better advised to then go to a big four and make your career there, and then either switch to buy side. Or also still into banking or a smaller, let's say, M&A boutique, rather than starting off in M&A at a small shop or unknown shop, right? This is probably like the number one career advice. Like if you want to go into freelancing, it will help you a lot to have those brand names. Secondly, certificates that have a international standard, like the CFA, or also other courses, right? So the Corporate Finance Institute, for example, so they offer a great certificate. Also, Kaya or any other kind of benchmark. I mean, the CFA is quite clear. Like, no one will doubt that you know valuation, that you know about how to analyze the company, right? So this is just like, let's say, on the paper. So certainly, it is your deal sheet, your clients, and so no person, no institution, organization can take that away from you. The past experience that you had with clients and what you actually have on your deal sheet is really what counts later on. So when you go freelancing, when you create your own boutique, be it traditional or not, doesn't matter. But it's really not the years that count, but the certain expertise in a particular sector. And as companies and clients become more and more international, you can really go with that past deal experience to any other client in Europe globally, since they will probably know that particular company in this particular niche, and you will gain lots of credibility if you promote your expertise that way. So these three things.
Okay. So now, thinking about, I know how to prepare myself, how to prepare my career. I know, okay, go to a big four, do some M&A, go to do some private equity there, get my certification on the way. I now make the jump to freelancer. I have a rule of thumb of at least, I don't know, +5. So maybe, I'm not at the -2 anymore. I'm at a +5, saying I have 8 years of experience. what comes next? So it's my first maybe gig as a freelancer.
Yeah.
How does it usually work? Do I try to build up a network, go for my own network? How do I get started?
So you have to build a client portfolio and your own network. I mean, this is what you need to do. If you look at the general share of your time, and this is, kind of what counts and how you do the math, is like, 54% you actually spend on executing deals. You have 10% admin work because you still need to do your taxes, your own books, right, to keep them clean. And then the remainder is really sales, networking, and building your own brand. And this is so important. I mean, the whole like LinkedIn game, the way how today's sales channel work is through mostly referrals, and you need to be able to market and promote your own skill set. And always, and it's super hard. It's super hard to just, you do execution, and then your capacity is full, especially in M&A, right? So you're doing 80, 100%, like maybe even in this 80% translates in M&A to, let's say 120% for every other normal person. And so it's like super hard to do still the networking and sales part of it, right? And this is a phenomenon of a dancing monkey. So if you don't work, you don't get any money. And this is the biggest problem in freelancing. So you better create a network and put yourself out there and find a way to promote yourself constantly. And this is the reason, and I don't want to do now a promotion for fintalent, but so you just need to find a way to market yourself, create your own website, polish your LinkedIn profile. It doesn't take much to reach out to promote your own successes and your own expertise.
Actually, you said something that I was really interested about, and what I just want to make clear: the work hours when you have a gig are still the same. It's not that you're like, oh, I'm going to take a gig part-time and I'm just going to work 20 hours a week. And I'm like, I'm dabbling a bit. It's still, I'm working a gig, I'm working my 100 hours a week, but the gig is like, I know it's over in 3 months. And then I either start looking for the next gig or I take 3 months off.
Yeah. I mean, so freelancing is not for lazy people. Actually, it's the opposite. So if you do it, you're a service provider, and if you work with a client, you also, I mean, this is your client, and you have to really over deliver, and so you will clearly see the results, right? So if the client is unhappy, you know that you lost the client, so you have to put in the extra effort. So what is the difference? The difference is that you can actually decide on what projects you take. So you are not dependent on your, MD's mood, let's say, to staff you for a certain project. And you can work on your own terms, right? So usually, I mean, there will be certain core hours that are expected, but usually if you are working on a project, so it doesn't really matter how and where you get the work done, right? So you can still take your kids out, take them from school, or drive them to their hobbies and so on, right? So you have actually the flexibility, and it's like super also purpose driven. So the way how you work, flexible, but you can also choose what projects you take, and also decide, as you said, like there's an end date to not take a project. And so to not take a project is so valuable to, so that kind of decision is not something that comes naturally or can be done in a typical corporate life. And this is actually the treasure and gold in freelancing.
That's round up soon. And I want to ask you maybe a couple of more fun questions. So is there, I guess you talked to some of your talent, is there a favorite location where talent wants to be based? Is it Bali, is it Thailand, or is it like just the suburbs with their kids?
Well, that's a very good question. It probably depends on the life situation. I mean, Bali is quite nice. Spain, Marbella, Malaga, Barcelona, Madrid is super. Portugal, Lisbon, I can recommend. But then again, like it becomes also quite hot, right? And so you are so if you like sports and you like to go to your favorite sports club and still hang out with your friends and enjoy that. This is so your own hometown might be your favorite place, but I mean, there are like there's so many great places to set up and just enjoy remote work. So it's just great. Like you see cities, especially like in Spain or also in Southeast Asia, with super fast internet, climatized rooms and offices, and where you just have a better quality of life than in most industrial countries.
Is it on your platform? Do people have to put in where they are based out of, or?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, they do, because of the time zone issue, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a client who's in Europe, they usually prefer someone in the European time zone. It doesn't really matter if that person is in Germany or in Spain. That doesn't matter. But you will have an issue working, like, let's say, with a San Francisco, like if a talent is based in San Francisco with a German client, it's like, I don't know, like 12 if I'm not wrong, complete, like, I don't know, like 8 hours, I think is a difference. So that usually will be a problem. But so that's the reason why it's important. But other than that, it's fine and up to the client.
What's the funniest destinations where people worked actually on a project where it's like, what the heck? How did they do that?
I think it was Congo. We had this one talent. So he's an ex-McKinsey guy, worked 2 years as an business analyst at McKinsey and a medical doctor, and was still doing his practical year kind of in Africa. Yeah, and it was funny because he worked for a large insurance company based in New York, and the task was clear, right? So it was clear to do a market research and analysis, and he did it from Congo.
Nice, cool. Yeah. All right. Ömer, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun catching up. Do you have any last tips that you want to leave our audience with? Anything they want to get out there?
Yes, please start exploring freelancing. It's not only about the flexibility. It's not about the money, but really about the choice and the values that you can see from life. And at the very end, try to build up a diversified income stream. It's the best thing that you can do in today's world, where ventures announce that they raise 20, 30, 50 million, and then the next day lay off 20% of the staff. I think the best way is to become independent.
Agree. If people want to know more about freelancing, about M&A freelancing, how can they find you?
So they can find us at fintalent.io. We're also happy to help. We have guides out there to guide you through how to do freelancing, how to become an M&A freelancer. There's also so much help on the internet, on other great web platforms, especially when you are not an M&A or a banker. There are so many great platforms out there that help you to get your first gig. So, just inform yourself, see how you get your first clients, what you're good in, your strengths, your weaknesses, and then it will be easy, but not simple.
Awesome. Ömer, thank you so much for coming on. To our listeners, please let me know if this was helpful. It's a bit a different episode than usual, but let me know if you want to hear more of those kind of things, and if you enjoyed it. And Ömer, have a great day.
Thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Wall Street Lab podcast. For the show notes and much more, visit us at www.thewallstreetlab.com. To see what we're up to before anyone else, subscribe to our newsletter on our website and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey again, this is Andy. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. Share the episode with your friends, with your colleagues, and everybody that is interested. And if you want to reach out, feel free to drop us an email, a message on social media. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts, your comments, your feedback. And thanks again for listening. Have a great day.
Disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast constitutes the opinions of individuals and should not be treated as investment, tax, financial, or legal advice. We take no responsibility for the accuracy of any statements made in this podcast. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only, and it does not contain an offer to sell or buy any sort of financial products, and should not be treated as advertisement for such. Any copying, distribution, or reproduction of this podcast without the prior permission of the creators of the podcast is strictly prohibited.